Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, this is a face cam less video. I might throw these here and there depending on the conversation, but today I'm going to talk about the January 6th debate in reference to, or in regards, or involving, that's a better vernacular in that situation, Destiny, Alex Jones, and a couple other people that I didn't know who they were, not because they weren't important, but they just didn't fall under the circle that I knew at the time. But those guys knew a lot, honestly, the guys with Destiny and the guys with Alex Jones, and it was a very interesting conversation nonetheless. And I'm going to talk about what I seen. Now, did I watch the full thing? No. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to keep it a stack with you. I watched a good amount, like over 2 hours of content. I stopped. The reason why I stopped is because I couldn't listen to Alex Jones anymore. I just couldn't. I couldn't listen to him. Keep in mind, I've never listened to Alex Jones before in my life. I only knew of him. I don't know much about him. I don't listen to his content. I don't follow him on Twitter. I didn't really know anything about Alex Jones, but I knew what lane he stood on. So this is my first opportunity to actually hear him in a debate, and I hated every second of it. I hated every second of it. And I guess kind of put it out in the air on why I didn't like Alex Jones. No, I'll save that. At the end of the video, I will tell you all my biggest issues with Alex Jones and why I think he's a secret genius on how he presents himself in these debates. I'm going to give you that full thing later on, but I'm going to focus on the details that I saw in terms of the debate. I got a lot of information. Maybe they went over some of the stuff in more detail later on. Maybe they brought up points that I didn't know of later on. I can't speak on that, but I can speak on what I did see, and I'm going to go over that, of course. Now, there was a lot of back and forth between the side on the left, the January 6th, it was an insurrection, and the January 6th was an insurrection, pro, anti, like the left and the right side. And there's some very interesting points that they did point it out. So I'm going to try to go point by point and kind of tell you my thoughts on what they said, but I'm going to make sure I'm going to indicate what details that they said specifically and that they brought up to the table. First things first, the definition of insurrection. They did point out, someone actually pointed out a definition of the insurrection from the US Constitution, indicating that a insurrection is something that is a obstruction or rebellion against the United States. Now, something that they kind of tackled quite frequently in the debate, it was the involvement of violence and the scope and severity of the actions being committed in the particular circumstance. And they bring that up consistently. But the definition never or doesn't even state that it has to require those things. It just has to require obstruction or rebellion against the US. And it's up to the people, or the Supreme Court more specifically, to figure out if the actions being committed fall under this definition. Now, historical precedent was also brought up in reference to what is going on. Now, sometimes the conservatives would kind of point out, well, I don't care what the courts say. I don't care what the legal proceeding. I care about historical precedent. It's a very dishonest way to do things, and it's a very sneaky way of doing things. But they did bring up examples that made the conversation very interesting. One of the examples is Al Gore and Bush. Other individuals or other people back in the day that was trying to say that the election was stolen, the election was fraudulent. And when Bush won, there were Democrats saying that the election was fraudulent. However, something that the people on the left said, I'm just going to say left and right to make things easier. Something the people on the left said was that, yes, there were some Dems who indicated that the election might have been stolen. I think there was an agreement that you can say the election was stolen, but how you act in accordance to you saying this is what matters. When they went to the Supreme Court and the Supreme Court said it wasn't stolen, Gore and the Dems stopped. They left it there and they moved on. That was a very key piece of information because after the Supreme Court situation with Trump and trying to find out if it was stolen, after all of that, Trump didn't stop. He wanted to protest. after the decision. And that's a very important distinction. They also brought up past insurrection, stuff like the Civil War, talking about the scope and severity of the violence and how much the actors were acting against the United States. And although that's important to note how something like the Civil War is different from something like January 6th, it's important to distinguish that just because the severity is different doesn't mean that they aren't the same thing. The qualification of what is going on could be the same, but the severity of what is going on can be different. We all understand that, right? We can understand the difference between someone hurting someone or someone committing violence against someone on a lower level where he gets a couple bruises versus someone committing violence to the point where they can't walk and they're basically paralyzed. Like, the severity does matter in determining the punishment, but doesn't take away what actually happened. And another thing that some of the conservatives brought up was comparing this to the BLM riots. And the argument against the BLM riots notion is that there wasn't a situation where they were coming after the state. They were coming after the government. Now, you could argue, yeah, they were burning down, police buildings and stuff like that, but they were just being violent protesters versus obstructing against the United States, coming after the United States. Whereas January 6th was a situation that happened during a proceeding of people on a committee inside the White House talking, trying to figure out the peaceful transition of power. So they're trying to obstruct that process. That is very different, and that is a distinction that was made in this situation. But I'm glad the leftists did say that, although with that said, all the people who committed the violent acts should get convicted, should be put in prison, should get punished for what they did. So we all understand wrongful actors deserve punishment. And they never denied that, which I appreciated. So they talked about historical precedent. But a lot of this, in my opinion, didn't support the conservatives' case because they had a rebuttal for everything that they said from what I've seen. So with that said, okay, let's go into a little bit more details on stuff that actually did happen. The first thing that they wanted to kind of figure out was Trump intentional in causing January 6th? Was he intentional in causing the coup? The definition of insurrection and what it is, I think we kind of understand what it is as of right now. And this all kind of falls on Trump defying the 14th Amendment at the end of the day, but Trump also wasn't charged for insurrection. And you actually don't have to be convicted regarding insurrection for this to be an insurrection based off the 14th Amendment and taken off the ballot. That is another point that was made consistently. But was Trump intentional for what he did in causing the quote unquote insurrection? When it comes down to testimony and referencing stuff that Trump did, it was very clear that when the testimony was under oath, there was a lot of individuals that actually testified against Trump and his actions. The people who were in vocal support of Trump, from what the lefties said, under oath, they didn't defend Trump at all. Matter of fact, they kept silent on defending Trump. And more than likely, that means that there is actual evidence that they can find completely contradicting anything you could defend regarding Trump. So that was very eye-opening, and it was very important people, Secret Servicemen, people a part of Trump's cabinet, the Secretary of State testified against Trump. Like, these are Trump's people testifying against him because they're telling the truth on the actions he did. And when we're talking about Donald Trump's actions, well, first there's kind of a timeline, right? When Trump gained presidency and throughout his tenure as president, he was growing a feeling amongst the people and growing a very committed, I can't even say supporters, it's more like a fan base of Trump supporters that believed his way of life, basically. Matter of fact, there is a whole video. This kind of sheds so much light on it. There was a video of a Trump supporter praying to Donald Trump, like legitimately praying to Donald Trump like he's the Lord and Savior. That's blasphemy. We all recognize that, right? I'm sure because people on the right are religious. He's a false god, and we're praying to Donald Trump. That is completely against the whole, your whole way of life. But with that said, Trump kind of made a consistent feeling that the institutions at in place and the federal government, the government in general, were inefficient. He undermined their power. He undermined what they did. He made them seem against them. Undermined every process of the federal government, the governmental institutions. Undermined the courts, everything. There's this rhetoric constantly going on that conservatives are now spewing that, oh, I don't trust the FBI, I don't trust the courts, I don't trust the government. And I'm sure people who are listening and watching go like, well, you shouldn't trust them. If you don't trust every part of the American government, then how can you ever rely on anything that the American government has ever done throughout its entire tenure? You can't. At that point, you might as well just leave the United States. What government are you going to go to? If the American government you can't rely on, there is no government that exists in the world that you can rely on. I'll be honest. Can the government be shady? Can the government keep secrets? Of course. But we got to take it face value at a case by case basis. To say that the American government hasn't created the strongest empire the world has ever known, had created a fruitful society that has problems that we need to tackle, but the amount of ease, the amount of things that people can do in America is crazy. You just go back and like, bro, this is the bro. The amount of people with LGBTQ rights, the amount of people who can now smoke weed, the freedom of speech. I can talk against my government. I can eat basically as much as I want. Like, we are getting spoiled with our liberties and privileges. I hope people know that. Like, the way the government, the society is now is because of how spoiled we've become from the liberties and privileges we garnered. I hope people know that. And we got to adjust. But that's my personal opinion regarding that. Back to the details at hand. So Trump was undermining the government, the institutions constantly. And then obviously the election took place and he said the election was stolen. So the feeling of the Trump fans is that, oh, the institutions are always against Trump and yeah, the election was stolen and all that. So the growing intensity of the distrust of the government has built up with the people based off Trump's basically what should I call it? His words, his presentation of America. So with that said, after the Supreme Court situation, he still didn't stop. He said, "Okay, let's protest." There are things that he said. He said that we should fight like hell. And Giuliani actually said that we should have trial by combat. And yes, Donald Trump at the end of the speech said, make it peaceful. But when you build up someone this much, and then your final statement is, but make it peaceful, it means nothing. It means nothing. That's like someone constantly antagonizing someone. Like, let me give you an example. Let's say there's these two individuals, and there's this guy and then another guy with his girlfriend, right? And the guy is just constantly like berating his girlfriend, undermining his girlfriend, talking about, hey man, she's doing this and this. She's kind of sneaky at night. She sends some text messages, but it's peaceful. She just texts me, like sowing the seeds of making the girlfriend seem like she's not loyal without outright saying it. Without outright saying it. But sowing the seeds, building up the distrust, constantly saying, "Oh, I don't like her" and all this stuff. And then at the very end of your speech, you go like, "But it's probably fine. It's probably fine. She's probably loyal." It means nothing. The emotions are already settled. The feeling and the perspective is already there. The final statement means nothing. So Trump built all these people up to have no trust in the government, say the election was fraudulent, and then told them to protest. They went, and we saw what happened. That is the claim being made from the people on the left. And that is what they're trying to figure out in terms of whether or not Trump incited an insurrection. That is the big cause for concern at the moment. And when all of this was taking place, to put the nail in the coffin, Trump's people were contacting senators, to decertify the election. He wanted Pence to throw out the election. So all of this had a purpose. The purpose to stay in power. So all of that is collected. And all of this was verified through testimony, through sources, and all that stuff, right? So, with that said, okay, now we understand a lot of Trump's actions. It's for the courts to decide if all these actions led to a very specific cause of causing an insurrection. And therefore, based off the 14th Amendment, does that mean you should stay on the ballot as a candidate? So we understand what Trump did, but what did that do necessarily? What did that do in terms of the people that were responding to the situation? Well, they actually had a lot of they had some information from people from the Proud Boys saying that they were there for Trump. They had over 100 people saying they were there for Trump. So a lot of the people that was there that were vehement supporters of Trump and protesting only was there because of Trump. And we know for a fact that there were people there with weapons as well, dangerous weapons, storming the White House. Were there peaceful people as well? Sure, but there were also dangerous ones as well. Let's keep that in mind. But there's details in regards to whether the election was stolen and all that. I'm not going to focus on that right now. I'm going to focus on the January 6th stuff, not because I think the conservatives made a good point. I actually don't think they made a good point in regards to that, but I don't think it's irrelevant. Let's stay on topic. Another thing that they brought up for the conservatives, and this is the last point I'll bring up and then wrap up the video, is okay, all this stuff that's happened, but what caused them to go inside the White House? Because it's not like Donald Trump said, hey, you guys go in the White House. It's not like he said that. So the conservatives changed their tactic and made it seem like, okay, yeah, Trump did everything that you said he did. That doesn't necessarily mean that caused them to go inside. What if something else caused them to go inside? And that is where this conspiracy came out, that the feds, the FBI, were the ones who caused the people to go inside to undermine Trump. The distrust falls in. Now, I can see why conservatives would believe this, because they already believe that all the institutions are against Trump. So any information that backs this up, hey, we're about to stick to it. Interesting change of tactics. So what do we know, right? We know for a fact that there were FBI agents there on the scene. There were undercover agents for a lot of these organizations, like the Proud Boys, kind of keeping tabs on them. So one thing we can't deny is that there were FBI agents there. Now, the claim that the FBI agents were stirring the people up and leading them inside the White House, there's no evidence of that. There's absolutely no evidence of that. And conservatives couldn't bring up any evidence regarding that. So there's no evidence of that. But their big poster boy to say that the feds were doing something against Trump was the infamous Ray Epps. Now, Ray Epps, former Marine, former member of this one organization. I forgot what they're called. I wrote it down, but I didn't write it down. Me, right. But Ray Epps was an individual, a vehement Trump supporter, as he says. Now, the conservative says he's not a Trump supporter. They wanted to disassociate themselves as much as possible with this guy and make him the scapegoat. I know it's very obvious what the conservatives are trying to do. But when they talk about Ray Epps, they talk about how he as an individual wasn't at the speech, even though he could watch the speech on his phone, but he wasn't at this speech. They talk about how he was saying trying to get people to go in the White House, which he did. There were video evidence of this. He was trying to get people to go in the White House, go inside and to protest inside the White House. Very inappropriate things. He obviously should get in trouble for that because you can't just go in the White House. Now, there is testimony saying that Ray Epps did tell people that, hey, the cops are on our side. He did tell people, don't fight with the cops. So there is testimony saying that even though he wanted to go in the White House, he wasn't being violent. He wasn't telling people to be violent. That was a very key component of everything here. But still, going to the White House is an AO not okay. But Ray Epps was doing this, and Ray Epps didn't get certain charges that people expected him to get. I think they said that he got a disorderly conduct charge, and the conservatives wanted him to get a obstruction of official proceeding charge. The reason why he didn't get this charge, what the leftists said, is that he never went inside the meeting room. He never did that, so he didn't get that charge. And the people who got very specific charges are the ones who got committed violence, who did who were involved in this adamant conspiracy and stuff that were very verifiable in terms of the actions that they were doing there. And from what Ray Epps, even though he said what he said, and he did text his nephew saying, I orchestrated it. How much does that mean? Not a lot, because on oath, on the when uh he was getting what's the word? When he was testifying, sorry about that. He did indicate that he didn't orchestrate it. So yes, you can be boisterous and say things to your nephew, but in reality, you didn't really do anything. It's hard. It's a very shaky stuff. Even though he did say, but like people say dumb stuff doing of things that they did or they think they did, but never actually did all the time. So it's like whatever. And the conservatives were like saying, okay, he didn't get this charge, even though it's questionable whether or not he deserved the charge. And he didn't go to a speech, even though he could watch the speech on his phone. He was trying to orchestrate people to go inside the White House, and then when he called, so this is a big thing. Epps testified that he called the FBI when he saw the video of him, or a friend saw a video of him doing what he was doing at the January 6th event. And the conservative says he called the FBI when he appeared on the FBI list. This is to kind of prove that he had, when it came to Epps, he had information, or he had certain connections in reference to him and the FBI, and whether or not I guess there's just question. This one was a very confused. Like, okay, he called the FBI. All right. The most provable claim was that he called him when he saw a video of him to ensure that he wouldn't appear in the FBI list, so the FBI wouldn't come for him, and that he was getting a lot of death threats from like people regarding the videos and everything as well. A lot of news outlets covered him as well, shedding him in a light, being the orchestrator of everything and causing everything. And now the conservatives are making him a scapegoat of everything as well. So it's a touchy situation. I kind of went all over the place on the Ray Epps stuff. Ultimately, from what I've seen, is conservatives have a lot of conspiracies on regarding Ray Epps. They think things are suspect based on how everything was working out. They have no provable claims that he is connected to the FBI at all. And from what we did garner, he actually was peaceful, never went anywhere he wasn't supposed to, and that all he did say that they should go in the White House. So Ray Epps, was he connected to the FBI, and did he cause everything? The causal thing regarding them going into the White House. So those are everything that I saw before I stopped watching because Alex Jones wasn't a fan of. And this is my piece regarding Alex Jones real quick. The reason why I don't like Alex Jones is one, he loves conspiracies. I really don't kind of respect anybody who constantly spills conspiracies without any provable claims constantly and consistently. He loves going off topic and bring up irrelevant stuff because, like, when someone's bringing up a point, he would bring up some random thing regarding Biden and Hunter Biden and the laptops. All of that was irrelevant to the conversation, but he brought it up to shift the tone of the conversation because he didn't know how to defend anything that was being said. And it's kind of ironic that he kept on going off topic. And then the two conservatives early on said, "Oh, yeah, you guys like to go off topic talking about the election or talking about the electors that Trump was creating to, change the election. But that's off topic. We're here to talk about January 6th." And every time Alex Jones changed the topic, they kept dead silent. And I think it was Greenswall. It's a hypocrite. He's kind of a hypocrite. He says, "Oh, you guys are not looking at it at a partisan. You guys are not looking at it objectively. You guys looking at it from your biased partisan eyes." He was doing the same thing. He would never keep the same energy for anything Alex Jones was doing. And I can tell that he probably disagreed with some of the things he was doing. And everything he came from was from a conservative lens. I hate people who try to act like they're being objective, but they actively support a side and attack another side. Like people like Tim, what's his name? Tim. You guys know who I'm talking about. You guys know the Tim I'm talking about. I don't know why I can't remember his name right now. But he is an individual who says, "Oh, I'm just libertarian. I don't have any side." All he does is attack the left. All he does is attack the left. I've never seen him attack the right. I've never seen him attack the right. So, like, that's what I'm talking about. I think Tim Scott. No, it's not Tim Scott. Tim Scott was a senator. What am I talking about? But you guys know who I'm talking about. But with that said, yeah, I don't like Alex Jones. I think they were pretty hypocritical. He would never shut up. He would never stop talking. He would make things derail so much. And the secret genius point that I'm mentioning is he loves to manipulate the people. And what I mean by that is that the points that he would make, the points that he would make obviously would be loud and boisterous and entertaining is the right word. He would immediately capture the audience. Regardless of the legitimacy of what he was saying, it's a very smart tactic. I mean, that's how media works nowadays. The louder you are, the more entertaining, the more of a character you are, the more you gain an audience. You appeal to the people. The people in general are just going to be attracted to the personality. I mean, leaders are the strong characters, and you're representing that strong character. So he does that. And then anytime someone is saying something else, he would throw in sarcastic remarks, say stuff that wasn't relevant, bring up things that take away from the conversation, say in a somber or sarcastic tone. And what this does, people, is understand confidence breeds understanding to an extent to the layman people, to the general populace. Because the general populace do not know anything about what is going on. They barely understand the details that is being represented to them, but they understand tone. Tone can be understood at a very simplistic level. So when a certain tone is already there, you can you or people will automatically attach themselves to the things that seem to be the most right without evidence, without factual checking. Tone. And especially when they're already biased to the right, this is going to inflame them even further. So, with that said, when he goes the opposite route, it says sarcastic remarks, somber remarks, says in a somber tone, says irrelevant stuff to change the conversation and tries to shift the conversation. The people who don't understand what is going on, the people who don't understand the details, they hear the tone, they hear the sarcastic remarks, and they immediately think that, okay, what he's saying is probably not relevant. It doesn't matter about the details on the logic being provided. It's all about the framing of this conversation. And Alex is a genius in doing that. It's manipulative, It is arguably evil. That's how you manipulate people. That's what the elite, that's what the most successful people, that's what the most horrible leaders in our history have done in manipulating the people. And Alex Jones is doing the exact same thing. He thinks that he's for the people. He's not. He's not. He's not for the people. But maybe this is just a skill he has and he's doing this ignorantly, which is a possibility for sure. It's a possibility. And all of his claims that were being made was stuff that he was saying that, oh, I was there, even though testimony in details contradict a lot of his points. And that, oh, the media lied about me and the courts lied about me, so they always lie about everything. That's People need to realize, yes, there can be examples of bad things happening in the past. Doesn't automatically mean that everything, just because you disagree with it, all those bad things that happened in the past are happening now. You have to prove that. You have to prove that. Having questionable or questioning the institutions is not a bad thing. But always thinking they're corrupt moves nothing forward. So that's all I got for this video. Got a little scrambly at the later on. I do apologize for that, of course. It's I think a few days later since I reacted to it, so it was refreshing my memory as well. But it was an interesting debate, way too long for me to react to, and I respect the moderator, but man, Alex Jones could not get his shit together. I think they should have had it where you can just mute mics because Alex Jones just wouldn't be quiet. He just wouldn't. So hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you did. If you disagree, let me know in the comment section as well. I'm trying to proceed publishing videos every single day moving forward so I can give you my opinions on content consistently and try to push the cause that we are here. Political solutions without political bias. Yes, I can tell you for sure I don't like Alex Jones. I don't dislike conservatives, but I dislike the conspiracy theory rhetoric and the blindly protecting of Donald Trump. I like a lot of conservatives, but sometimes we get a little ridiculous. On the left too. Trust me, I come at the left as well. You just gotta find the content where I do that. I'm not like, why can't I remember? Is it Tim Scott? Is it really Tim Scott? Let me look up this dude. Because now I'm irritated. It's not Tim Scott. I know it's not. It's like Tim. I can't remember his last name for the life of me. Okay, so you're gonna hear me ramble while I look this up. Tim, Timmy, Tim, Tim, Destiny. Let's see. Tim Pool. Tim Pool. There we go. I don't know why I couldn't remember that. Tim Pool. It's a weird name, don't lie. But yeah, I try to be unbiased. I don't just attack one side the entire time. I attack the lefties too, trust me. So I hope you guys enjoyed. You all have a good one. Take care and peace.